talk about building bridges, building connections in research. So I've never given a talk like this. It took me a little while to think about how to sort of frame this. And honestly, I'm not an engineer. I really don't know how to build bridges. So I was going to consult Mary Gospodarowicz, who unfortunately is not here, but and then I thought, wouldn't it be great if we have a Golden Gate Bridge between the two buildings that will really connect the two buildings, that we no longer have to walk through the tunnel or outside. So anyhow, that's sort of the inspiration behind this, that we're really trying to build bridges. Joking aside, I think I've been here for 18 years now and worked with a lot of you and hope to work with a lot more of the others who I have not worked with. And I think the first thing for me to think about building bridges and building programs is to really align with the institution. I think it's going to be difficult to paddle your own boat somewhere and go against the stream. And I'm glad the foundation is front row in the audience. And I think it's very important for us to see the vision of the institution when we think about our own programmatic vision. This slide really shows our 5 main pillars. I'm not going to go through all of them. You should know them if you don't already. I think, obviously, strategic changes because science changes, but at the same time, these are really the forefronts of what we should be doing on what we should be thinking now. And to think about really a research program, we want to be as aligned as it is possible. So, as you heard, I am involved with a few programs here, and with Amit, I co-lead the drug development program. I am particularly interested in the early part of drug development, taking drugs to human for the first time, so-called phase 1 trials. About 5 years ago, with Suzanne Cameron-Reed and Phil Bedard, we also started the Cancer Genomics Program with a lot of the molecular profiling, trying to figure out genomic signatures that help to predict treatment for patients with cancer. And then about 2 years ago, I was asked to help with the tumor immunotherapy program. Honestly, the TIP program does not need a lot of help. We have world-renowned scientists here, Pat Mohashi and others, who are already doing amazing immunotherapy-related science and research. So the TIP program really is to try and bring the whole science and clinic together. And we've mounted the TIP program about 2 years ago. But all this really is to help bring a core vision of precision medicine, really to enable patients to get the best treatment at the right time. I want to say that we don't want to forget when we do that, there are other important divisions and departments in the institution that we need to work with. And I think this is where the building of the bridges matter. So obviously radiation oncology, pathology, translational sciences, medical imaging, laboratory medicine, biostats. I'm sure I left some. And I'm sure you will remind me after my talk that I left you out. So hopefully I think the point is made that this is important to think beyond just your own sandbox, because day in, day out, this is the interaction that matters to programmatic building. So I'm going to use a few of these programs to really illustrate what I think I have learned and share with you, and hopefully you'll tell me what I should also think about in the future in terms of growing the programs. So a bit about the phase 1 program. We started since 2003 formally, maybe a bit longer before that, when Malcolm, Amit, and I decided that we would bid for the NCI US phase 1, phase 2 grants, and we formalized our connections, and really with the help of the NCI to kickstart, we decided that an early drug development program is really where we want to be. And that was really a bold move, because at that time, there are very few centers outside of Kingston in the NCIC that would do early phase trials. We were somewhat looked like the rebels trying to do our own program out there. But we thought that looking into the future, drug development was going to be a very big piece of cancer treatment. And we're in a really privileged position here at Princess Margaret Cancer Center, where we have so many patients with advanced cancer needing new drugs. So we thought, let's do it, let's try it. So we were successful, and I think since then we have mounted a very large drug development program endeavor. The phase 1 program, which I currently enrolls about 200, 250 patients a year. We have the opportunity, therefore, to offer patients new drugs, either from pharmaceutical companies or academic agencies like the CCTG, NCIC, and NCI-US as well. Currently, we're one of 12 centers. The only one outside of US is Canadian, is us, really selected by the US NCI to receive the license to do these kinds of phase 1 and phase 2 trials. And we have preferred alliance with large pharmaceutical partners. I think one of the most important points I want to emphasize is that we have become the training ground for many young investigators who are interested in drug development. Ultimately, these investigators, fellows, go back to their home country to build their own programs, and we're very proud of this. This program being led by Phil Bedard really is known for training the next generation, really sowing the seeds out there in the world so that the drug development spirit continues. This is the phase 1 grant that I mentioned. We are also in collaboration with Vancouver, with Dan Renaud and Kim Chi, in Moffett, which is in Tampa, Florida, with Dan Sullivan and his team. Together, we're part of this network with the NCI-US that we help to develop new drugs. And this is a very interesting interaction. There are many big centers such as MD Anderson and Mayo Clinic, etc., that are part of this, again, sandbox, and trying to really figure out how to work in this kind of environment, which is very US-centric, has been something that we have sort of learned to do and still be able to stand our own place and develop drugs for our Canadian landscape. So I mentioned about partnerships. Over the years, Amit, Malcolm, and I have really done a lot of partnerships. And I'll talk a little bit later in terms of, if you're interested to work with pharmaceutical partners, how do you sort of do that? And how do you behave? And how do you sort of be able to get them to come back and want to do more with you, with Princess Margaret? But just to give you an idea of our partnerships, we have alliance with Genentech Roche. We're one of probably around 18 sites around the world, but the only one in Canada that is part of their core immunotherapy sites, so-called CIT. This initiative is quite new, but it's quite broad. As I mentioned, it's international. And interestingly, recently they actually just had a request for application looking for ideas to encourage these 18 sites to work together. And so we had a few meetings, and we sort of asked investigators in various divisions, not just DMOH, but DRO, DSO, to put out ideas, to say if you have something you're very interested in and you're interested to, put a proposal, please do that. And I was very impressed by the quality and the caliber of the proposals that we received, one from Rebecca. So we put in 8, which is sort of what they were looking for, and we are hoping to hear in the next couple of months. So again, building bridges within and building bridges outside as well. We have a long-standing relationship with some of the other partners I have also listed here. Just to mention a few more, we've been really from day one with Novartis being their long-standing preferred partner to do phase 1 trials here. We have a partnership being a center of excellence for BMS. We're part of their IO immuno-oncology surges, meaning that they will typically come to us with this pipeline. We typically get what we call the first patient, first visit. If you're in drug development, this term is important. This FPFV means you are the guy or girl who put the flag on the moon and put the first patient in the world on their drug. They would only want you to be doing this if you're qualified and have a good track record to do so. So we typically are very zealous about being the first patient, first visit site for many of the drug companies that we work with, because it shows that we're fast, we're qualified, and we're good. I won't go through all of them. You can read these yourself. So just a quick sort of idea about building programs. We have in the phase 1 program not just the MDs, and we just named our new program manager this morning because I wanted to be ready for this talk. Our program manager, Stephanie, who's been with me for 2 years, has been poached by Camage to be the strategic planner. So I personally feel that if you have a very successful team, people come to you and find your people and poach them. So I think I take that as a big compliment. So we just recently poached somebody else's program manager to be ours. So we just named Karen Ng, who is from the Kreml Institute, who leads the neuroscience Alzheimer's program to be our new program manager in the next, hopefully many years. But the reason I showed this slide, which is our org chart, really is to show that a program is not just the investigators. It's not just the program manager who leads the data management, but you can see there's lots of parts in here. And the interaction between these parts is very, very important. And the way I think the program is successful is that everyone, and I can speak for them in this group, feel they're part of the program. It's a culture, it's a passion, that they feel that they're doing something that contributes to move the phase 1 program forward. So we obviously have fellows that I've mentioned who train with us, nurses, our pharmacists, the correlative studies program that is shared across the institution, students, managers, regulatory coordinators, we have a financial analyst. We all meet very regularly, and we all talk, and we all feel that we're contributing a piece to the program. I think that probably is one of the key success to programs. The meeting, the physically seeing face-to-face, and the communication is probably the most important factor. A word about the Genomics Program. I mentioned about this about 4 or 5 years ago. We created the Genomics Program with the help of the foundation, of course, to enable us to do molecular profiling. Celeste, who's sitting right there, is our program manager, and we've been very successful. You're probably aware of the impact study that was rolled out in 2012. We, at the end, finished around over 3,000 patients, both locally at Princess Margaret and also community oncology centers that we profiled. And this has actually led us to have really a place internationally about molecular profiling. I would say the most important, one of the most important successful element for Impact Compact is that we saw this coming, again, just like drug development, before people were doing this on a regular basis anywhere in the world. So we're one of the few programs that started molecular profiling way back in 2012, when people were still not so sure what molecular testing was about. And we got the infrastructure in place, brought the right people together, and start working on that. So currently we are moving to Impact 2.0, which is called Octane. We just had our first tumor board yesterday in Octane for the division, which is really now beyond Princess Margaret. It allows us to do molecular profiling across the province, all the sites that are doing molecular testing, which is Kingston, Hamilton, London, I missed something, I'm sure. Ottawa, thank you. That's why you have program managers in the audience to help you. To work together and share data, we're going to also work with OICR to build a portal that enable us to actually learn together. And again, you know, we wanted to go beyond just Princess Margaret. We wanted to be able to grow at least regionally, and ultimately we will also be sharing with BC and McGill nationally. So this particular phase of molecular profiling is really, I think, something quite exciting. In addition to molecular profiling in using it to allow us to assign drugs, we're actually going to store an extra sample of DNA, RNA, blood, for example, that if there's any interesting ideas or research, there is also a discovery component, a translational lab called Translational Genomics Laboratory that Trevor Pugh and Ken Adalpi are spearheading to enable us to do very deep dives. So for example, there are very specific questions. For example, patients with unknown primary cancers, wanted to know what sort of the deep molecular profile that perhaps can hint to us what the primary is from. That's really a lab that can potentially do very deep dives, genomic and transcriptomic sequencing. So that, again, is really building the programs and then extending and building beyond that.
Lillian, what does Octane stand for?
Oh, you're not going to make me do that, are you? It's the Ontario something nucleic acid evaluation. What's the C for?
Cancer.
Oh.
That was a rhetorical question.
I came up with most of the acronyms. This one is from Phil. I guess it meant fuel. It lets you keep going, I think.
You do brilliant work, but you guys come up with the best acronyms in medicine, I think.
I didn't come up with this one. That's why I didn't know it.
Lillian, you know there's a website
Co-opting?
No, called
Acronym creation.
acronym generator. And you just put in your sentence and it will give you a
I don't think this one would have come out from that. But anyhow.
Those are terrible.
I knew somebody's going to make fun of our acronyms. So on the note of acronyms, TIP, which is not meant to say this is going to tip over. It's not the tip of the iceberg either. We're just on the tip of the discovery of immunotherapy of science. So anyhow, so TIP started about 2 years ago. As I said, the word started, I think, is a bit not true because immunotherapy has been part of our science for a long time here at UHN and Princess Margaret. But I think to consolidate it such that we can have basic translational research, immune phenotyping, immune monitoring, and then really engaging the disease site is really the vision. And we thought this would be a good way to start this. And I don't think we were behind in starting this, but as you can see, Paul sends us an email every other day about how immunotherapy is just blossoming in the world, and we want to be right there at the forefront, if not even ahead of the others. So I think this is very important. The vision of seeing what's ahead of you and be able to lead it before you become a follower is very important. The big domains that TIP is really trying to cover is, again, sponsored research, which we're very good at because we do a lot of sponsored trials already. There's a lot of new drugs in this area that are coming out, not just drugs with antibodies and stuff, but also viruses, vaccines, and bispecific T-cell engagers to bring the T-cells to the tumor bed so that they can attack the cancers. We're also doing a lot of investigator-initiated research. A lot of this work really is homegrown from Pam Ohashi as well as Naoto, as well as Mark Butler, doing a lot of the tumor immunotherapy treatments and bringing really bedside to bench and back. And I will use a couple of these trials to illustrate the whole programmatic interaction later on. We also want to cover other aspects of immunotherapy. So Aaron Hansen, who is one of the young medical oncologists, is actually spearheading a quality of life instrument development. And it's actually together with David Sella in Chicago, who is one of the godfathers of quality of life of the FACT questionnaire. Again, building bridges to beyond Princess Margaret. We reached out to David and said, hey, I got a young guy who's very interested in this. Would you consider working with him, even though we're not physically in Chicago? We can fly there. It's only an hour. So far, I think Aaron has already met with him about 2 or 3 times, and it's been a very good relationship in terms of building this instrument. And we hope this is really the beginning of his career for Aaron in terms of expertise. And then lastly, this discovery part of TIP is very important, to constantly think of new things that are really moving the field over to the next page. So I'm now going to go to sort of more take-home and philosophical part. This is the part I dread because I don't know data, so it's really philosophical. But I teach in ASCO a leadership development course, and every year they take sort of young investigators that are promising, and they want to sort of train them in ASCO, American Society of Clinical Oncology, to be the next leaders. So they make all of these students read the book Good to Great. They make the teachers read it too, just so that they actually know what they're talking about. So I had to read this book Good to Great, which it's actually in the business field where they're looking, well, this guy who writes it, very famous guy, I guess, not as famous as Paul, who wrote his book. But basically, they look at companies that are not just great, but they came from a good, sort of a medium stage to great, and see what they did to make them become great companies. And they think that companies that are great to begin with and end up being great probably don't learn as much from them. So I just took a few points out from good to great that I think are very important in terms of building bridges and building programs. The first thing they said is really something that we laughed a lot in the leadership course, being a level 5 leader, and we all look at ourselves and say, none of us are really level 5 leaders. Most of us are level 4, or level 2, or level 1 leaders. But the level 5 leader is really is one that is ambitious for the program and not for themselves. And this is not just necessarily the MD or the doctor who sits at the helm of leading the program, but in general, within any program that has a leader, it's really to have the ability to not be a show horse, but be a plow horse. And I think every time I think of this point, it's going to be something that drives us or the group forward to think beyond just for personal success, but for the programmatic success. Then interestingly, they talk about who to get on the bus, how to get the right people on the bus. And again, that theme permeates throughout the year in the development course. And how do you get the right people on the bus? And more difficult challenges, how to get the wrong people off the bus. And I thought the other thing that is interesting is put the best people you have on your biggest opportunity, not your biggest problems. And the problems should work themselves out, but you really need to make the best people out of the qualities out of your best people and let them have the opportunity to grow. So that's, again, and it may sound motherhood apple pie, but there are some truth to these kinds of statements. The third point, I'm not going to go through all the points. I just highlighted 3 or 4 points from the book that is interesting. The third point is confronting the brutal facts. We do that a lot in our group, where we basically confront each other with things that are not good. We make a mistake, we should learn from it, and really creating a culture where the truth can be heard, I think it's so important. Just to give you an anecdote, we have, in the past, we don't do that as much anymore. We have a dictation template for Phase 1 program that we dictate in a certain way so that the notes don't look completely different from one physician to another. And then I made everyone in the program dictate the same way, myself included. And then we audited them. We had a quality assurance person every 3 months look back and look at sample dictations and see how they did. And then we score them. And then we put it in the Phase 1 meeting and say who's making more mistakes and who is not. And then we track what they did in the last quarter and humiliate them if they're making a lot of mistakes, including myself. Honestly, humiliation works. It is the best way to make people feel that, okay, I don't want to be embarrassed in front of my peers again. I'm going to make sure I dictate the way that I want to dictate in the future. But, joking aside, the fact that we can do this and laugh at it is probably important. If everybody sort of feels that they made a mistake and they should just bottle it up and not say it, you probably never move forward. So I think the fact that we can really confront the brutal facts is an important asset. The hedgehog concept is a very interesting concept in the book. It basically, the way I see it, I think of it as like the Krispy Kreme donut thing. That you do one thing and you do one thing really well. You don't have to do like a lot of things semi-well, but you do one thing really well. And the last line, it says, hedgehog program is simple creatures that knows one big thing and stick to it. That's what the hedgehog does, right? It rolls up when somebody's trying to attack it so that you don't be able to attack it. But other programs are more like foxes that know many things but lack consistency. So I guess the way we see it in each of these programs is that we do one thing and we do one thing really well. So people come to you when they look for that thing, whatever that thing is. And I guess you each have to figure out your own hedgehog concept. So some examples from the Phase 1 program that I think we have been sort of been learning over the years that have helped us a lot is, I do think it's really all about the people. Sharing the same passion and being out there with the same kind of passion is very important. I think communication is very important. We meet weekly. Even if I'm not here, somebody will run the meeting. I will try and Skype in if I could. It's religious. We don't cancel these meetings easily. Maybe, something happened that we need to cancel 1 week, but it's very unusual. We have a daily sign-out. I've mentioned about the dictation, but we have a daily sign-out that the fellow who's taking care of the patient for the day, we copy the whole program that is involved, so we all know what's happening. So any one of us can move out of the program for the day. We know somebody can take over. We have a way that we review scans beforehand so that we don't put ineligible patients on. We talk about good practices, we talk about bad practices, and we learn from it. Every week we try to do that. And the interesting thing is after the Phase 1 meeting every week, things get done. We talk about you need to do X, Y, Z. X, Y, Z happens at 4 to 5. The meeting is 3 to 4. It's a culture. People walked out of the program knowing that everybody else is going to do what they're told to do, and that if you don't do it, you're probably going to feel like you lag behind. I don't have to send reminders because it happens. So that, I think it's a passion, it's a culture. We had an annual retreat last year to instead of the usual, fun and talk about things, we actually put people in teams to compete, to come up with 3 things that improve the program. And then we have a winner. I think the study coordinators won in terms of their 3 suggestions. And we try to implement those actionable improvements. So I think those are things that we're trying to make improvements that is not just from one perspective, but from all the perspectives. Again, I mentioned about the hedgehog concept. I think for us, it's really to be able to do high-quality phase 1 study with appropriate patients, very good assessment, high-quality compliance, strong and on-time data management, really engaging physicians and partners. Again, it's an understanding. It's not a strategy or a vision. This is what we do, and this is what we do well, and people know that we do this well. From the CGP and TIP, I think what we have done really is a little bit different from phase 1, where we go out a lot to pharmaceutical partners, NCI, etc. TIP and CGP, we have to work inside a lot. We have to collect or get interest from many groups like scientists, pathologists, etc. to really work together for the big common good. It's not easy. I'm going to say it right now and say, even as of yesterday, we were asked, why should I do this? What good is it for us, for me? How do you tell somebody, say, we're doing this for the bigger common good, not just for your good? And think about it. We all hear Princess Margaret because we want to do common good to improve the cure of cancer. It's not because we want a line on our CV. At least I hope that is not the case. So that's something that I think we have to deal with quite a bit. Not just CGP TIP, but I think in general. People need to think of that. And ultimately, when you have the big good, you'll get the small good. That's how I think most of us see it. When the program's successful, everybody in it will be successful. So if you think about the impact compact study, with the big study, we have so many spin-off projects, and many people come to us and say, we want to do sort of, looking at this data, can we do that? The CGP, for example, database with the impact compact, it's our data. It's not, just 1 or 2 persons' data. Anybody who has an idea could come to us, fill a form. We're going to vet it with the executive. I don't remember the last project that we vetted and said no. And Celeste can tell me that. So I think it really is something that we have built to let everybody use. We do a lot of vision and mission discussions on how we're going to have short-term delivery, long-term delivery, how to benchmark against other programs so that you're not just in your own little shell and move very little forward in time. I am a believer of sentinel projects. I think to build a team, to bring them together, having a big sentinel project is very important to weave the team together. So Paul will laugh at me. So we have Impact Compact, obviously, and Octane. For TIP, we have Inspire and Metadir, and I'll tell you what these are in a few minutes. So I truly believe in this idea of doing a big project that ties the team together, because it will help you to figure out how to work with the team, how to resolve conflict, how to troubleshoot and share success. Again, regular meetings, communication. I think transparency is very important, and I'm still struggling with how to do that, including financial matters when it gets sensitive. But I think you have to talk about it. Who's going to get the money? Who's going to get the grant? How are you going to spend the grant? How does this work? And I think we try to be as transparent as possible, and I think that's something that we consider an important element. And really constantly seeking out peer review funding opportunities. And then lastly, the investigators, the young investigators. Every one of these programs, I think we are trying to groom the next generation. So there are many opportunities for young investigators, and I'm going to put a pitch right there. I don't see too many young people there, but anyhow. To encourage you to come to us. Don't take it wrong. To really come to us with ideas related to genomics, related to immunotherapy, because again, the program is welcoming new ideas to build, and it is not meant to be a walled-off program where nobody can be part of the group. I mean, we want to have new people, we want to have new blood and new ideas. moving a little bit to sort of working with industry or even other groups, what I think metrics are important. Efficiency is important. And I think many of the pharmaceutical partners out there talk about us. They talk about programs and talk about institutions, and they compare, and they should. They benchmark and say, in fact, they keep metrics about these efficiencies. And then they show it to another institution and say, see, this is where you are compared to that other program. And I would say, you want to be the bar that has the shortest start times, because that's obvious. Their drug development, time is money, time is precious. And if you take too long to open a trial, they're not going to want to come back. So the efficiency is very, very important. And we try to move things. And they say, well, how can you get things open so quickly? Because I'm on it, or we're on it. Nothing's going to happen unless you put your heart to it. So if I know something is slow, or Phil knows something is slow, or Albie knows something is slow, we're on it immediately. And the program managers can attest to this. We will not let it sit in the box for more than a day or so. We get it going. And if there's a problem, we need to solve it. The quality of the work is obviously important. We keep very close tabs on in terms of any deviations. We want to make sure deadlines are not passed. People will remember if you miss deadlines. If you miss a data lock and you're one of the sites that is holding up a database lock, they'll remember it. And we try not to do that. And I guess being professional and going out there and that they want to work with you, that you come in with a smiling face and not like, oh, not another study again. We don't have enough people time. We'll make it work. So, and then obviously accrual is important. And I don't want to forget the science. I know a lot of these trials are science from the companies and not necessarily home science, but we're at the point of drug development that most people don't come to us with a finished protocol. They come to us with a concept that they're developing, and they want to engage us. They want our input, because at the end of the day, we're the ones who are enrolling the patients. They want to be able to involve investigators who are in the field from the get-go. And that, to me, I think, has also brought in a lot of the trials for us and a lot of the business for us, because they know that we are able to have that kind of input. What we typically do, just to share some, again, practices, is if a company comes to us with a concept or with a draft protocol, within 1 week, that's our goal, I would circulate it to all the investigators, the pharmacy, the data management, the nursing, and then we compile a report with detailed comments, typically about 4 to 5 pages of comments back to them. So that when they send us a protocol, they don't just say, oh yeah, it looks good. This is a serious review of their protocol. That they probably would pay thousands of dollars to get something to read, but we would do it pro bono because we know they're going to come to us for the trial. And then they will set up a call with us to go through these point by point. They take it seriously. They'll have written comments back to us on these points, and they'll set up a call to discuss these points. And I understand this kind of feedback is something that they really, really value, and we're known to do that on a consistent basis. And then obviously cost is important, but I won't go there today. It'd be nice if we don't have to pay overhead, so just teasing. Again, processes is important, efficiency is important, parallel processes are important. Sequential processes, I think, are things of the past. We cannot do things sequentially because it takes too long. Everything should be happening concurrently, so that at the end, you converge and you put it all together and bang, you're ready to go. That kind of efficiency, I think, is important. So we have process maps written out. We're creating a glossy brochure, as the foundation folks know, to put really all our metrics in print, so that when companies come to us, we have a formal document actually showing some of these things I'm showing you now that we have data for. We also collect our time, our metrics, in terms of how long it takes to open the study. I know CCRU Pam is in the audience, also collect this. So we both collect this type of data in terms of looking at the time to open, from the time you get the protocol concept to opening a study. And to them, it's going to be very important to have this point. We pride ourselves that we can open a trial in about, around 2 months' time from the get-go to IRB approval, which is, short compared to some of the centers in the US that can take 6 months. Long compared to some of the private phase 1 programs that take 20 days or less to open a study. But that's a different setup.
But also much more efficient than the rest of UHN. So how do you guys? What's your magic sauce?
We're on it.
Do you guys have like a dedicated person?
We have a dedicated regulatory person.
Right.
I mean, that's shared with DDP 2, like phase 2. And, that's obviously important. But we do things concurrently. We do not do things sequentially. And we keep tabs of whose inbox is it in and harass them.
So you actually have your own sort of chart, if you will. Is that right?
But honestly, we're on it. We have to get on it to make sure it doesn't slow down.
Lillian, just to add to that, Lillian's group is actually DDP1 is the fastest group in.
Sorry, say again.
Lillian's group is the fastest in the hospital.
Right.
And that has been consistent over.
Right, but what's the magical variable?
It's exactly what
you
she
guys
said.
are monitoring it day by day, right?
It's the specialized contrast. I think that helps a lot. And exactly what she said, being on it.
Right. But that individual is available to everyone in the cancer program?
That individual is in me? No. I'm not going to be on your protocol.
But we have just rehired another person that is going to. Because DDP 1 and 2 had a specialized contract person for several years, and that's why DDP 1 and 2 had fast timelines. And so we have hired this person now where we can fast track our protocols for everybody else.
Available for everybody within the
now
cancer program?
there is an additional charge for that.
But it's well worth it.
But it is worth it. It's a couple of $1,000 perhaps. And if you can get a contract through faster, I think that's because that is one of the leading causes.
And that remains a major issue at UHN. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we've come to terms that we need to get things fast. So contract is obviously important. Budget negotiation is important. So we have dedicated people to do that. And people know because they'll say our last study only took 2 months, whereas another study takes 6 months. They're going to come back to here because they know it's fast. The last bit of my talk, I just really want to, because I think there are people in the audience who want to say, if I have a concept, how do I bring it to the bedside? How do I translate it to a clinical trial? How do you do investigator-initiated research? It's not as easy as just 5 points, but obviously you got the concept. And then you need to really, in each of these time points, bring in the right people to help you do that, to really bring the concept to the trial design. And then at that time point, you need to start already engaging your pharmaceutical partners. By the time that you present the concept to them with a done concept, it's probably too late. Somewhere really around here, you need to have people who have contacts to really start having an engagement to say, are you interested in this concept? And if you're not, go to another company or an academic agency like NCI, NCIUS, which may have these kinds of drugs available or treatments available. But really building up the connection right from the get-go to get them interested in the idea is going to be very important. And let me give you a couple of examples to illustrate. I'm going to use the Inspire and Meditor. Paul, these are the explanations for the acronyms. Inspire is a study we launched March this year. And Meditor is a study we will open in the next few weeks. That's taking Daniel's science, which is really about the hypomethylating agents, really bringing on a viral mimicry atmosphere to the cancer environment so that it primes the cancer for immune therapy. We knew that he had this amazing science. We said, this is crazy. We got like a brilliant scientist here who has published in Cell. We got to make this work translated to a clinical trial. So right from the get-go, we sat down with Dan and said, how do I do this? If you have all the drugs and all the money in the world, what kind of studies would make sense for your science to be translated? So we did that. So a word about Inspire. Inspire is a study where we look at the drug pembrolizumab, which is an immune checkpoint inhibitor, taking the brake off the immune system to allow it to attack cancer, to be given to 100 patients, head and neck cancer, triple-negative breast cancer, ovarian cancer, melanoma, and a mixed tumor basket, 20 patients each, doing what we call deep dives. And we biopsy patients at the baseline, we biopsy them at around 9 weeks, and then if they respond and then progress, we biopsy them again, doing very deep sequencing, immune profiling, circulating DNA. Scott's in the audience, we give them stuff to test. And we're not interested in we are interested in whether the drug works in these tumors, but there are bigger studies with this drug in these tumor types out there. What we're interested is to really understand whether there's a molecular or immune profile that predicts response with this drug or this class of drugs. And this is something that, companies are all sort of doing ad hoc, but to be able to do this systematically and look at it in very, very deep kind of dive, look at very, scientifically sophisticated assays, etc., with Pam Ohashi's group and others, I think it's something that has not been done on a regular basis.
So who's doing the radiomic analysis with you?
We're collecting the data. We haven't analyzed it yet, so we'll probably knock on David Jaffrey's door. And we have also worked a little bit with Metzler's group as well. But that one we have not analyzed yet. We've done some preliminary data on radiomics with some immune checkpoint and head and neck cancer, so we sort of have some ideas, but we haven't applied it to this yet. But that you can just use your regular CTs to do, so we can do that later on. So again, we meet weekly. Before the phase 1 meeting, we have the Inspire and Mediger meeting. So since March 2016, so that's about 5 months, we're currently at 43, but patients who don't have 2 biopsies will be replaced because we want to make sure we have 100 pair biopsies of these patients. So currently we're doing well. Some tumor sites are doing better than the others, but we're getting a lot of interest in this study. The other thing that we have done is really making sure there's, again, a website available, all the regulatory documents are there, the group can all go in there to look at the latest update in terms of accrual, and really have a go-to place if they have any questions. A word about Mediger. I'm going to make sure I save a little bit of time on this. Mediger, as I said, is really to bring Daniel's idea of using a hypomethylating drug, allowing sort of the body to feel like it's being infected by virus. So, you're primed to get an immune therapy on top of that to really attack the cancer. So we're giving patients 2 drugs. One is oral azacitidine or CC486 from Celgene, and then a PD-L1 inhibitor from AstraZeneca MedImmune. This trial is not easy to garner interest from industry because it's 2 companies. And working with 2 companies, you can imagine, is not easy. But we're able to do that. We're already ready to go. We're just waiting for durvalumab to show up here, and then we have 4 or 5 patients lined up ready to enroll. So Mediger will open this month. We promised Daniel we will recruit the patient a year, no longer than his paper, which came out August 27, 2015. So my days are limited. So I need that drug arrive here like today. So I think this is probably close to my last slide. I think these are most important elements for success. The people is in the middle, for sure. The science is important, the quality is important, the efficiency is important, the passion is very important. If you have these 5 pieces, I don't think you need anything else. You will be successful. I did not put a slide to acknowledge people because there are too many people. So I put a slide to acknowledge our supporters, including obviously the foundation in the audience, and then many others that I hopefully have not missed. But I think people-wise, all the programs would not have been successful without the institutional leaders' support. I don't have all the photographs. We're taking another one today, so acknowledge all the programmatic members. A pitch for our program meeting. The TIP meeting has been launched, or the advertisements have been launched. November 18, 2016 is the first TIP symposium. This is really showcasing our Princess Margaret expertise in terms of immunotherapy. So I hope you all are interested or will come. There was an email that was sent out. If not, email Tracy Wong. Don't email me. You can email me too. But it's free for all trainees. The others who are interested, it's I think $50 for registration. It's a token registration. So we also going to ask our keynote speaker is Mario Snow from Yale. We also will have interactions with our community oncologists to talk about management of toxicities, and you can see some of the topics here. So hopefully we'll all see you there on November 18 in the Mars Auditorium. That's it. 10 minutes left.
Exceeds what I asked for and exceeds expectations. So, questions from the audience?
Lillian, that was fantastic. Please don't humiliate me for asking this question. And it relates to this slide, and for everybody in the room. On November 17th in the evening, Thursday, from 5 to 7, before this very exciting symposium you're going to have, the foundation is going to be hosting 300 to 400 of our top donors and supporters on the 7th floor for a donor summit on immunotherapy. And many of the same speakers that will be speaking during the symposium will be taking part in that donor symposium. If you can make it, it's the evening, 5 to 7 p.m. on the day before this, on November the 17th, and we'll be sending around more information on this particular subject. So that's a little commercial, but you'll also all benefit from the fundraising that we hope to do out of that.
I bet you that date was not coincidental. It's all prime.
The only time you know you'll all be in town.
Exactly. We were strategic in this.
So this is excellent, Lillian. So can you sort of give a little bit of description about how our radiation medicine program can then liaise with the successes that you've developed over in going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the treatment currently is drug-centric, which is not really the right necessarily focus. And I think the Genentech recent experience is probably one of the good examples where we engaged beyond just the medical oncologists and hematologists who use drugs. So that request for application went out to, I think, a larger group. And I didn't send it to everyone. I sent it, I think, to key people who sent it to key people because it specifically said, if you know anybody who's interested, pass it along. And, for example, Rebecca and Kathy knocked on the door and said, we have this idea. Do you think it's reasonable? We tweaked a little bit of it to make it a little bit more palatable, not a big study. We'll see what happens. But I think the engagement has been, really that way.
But that's kind of very sort of small, sort of little bits, right? But I mean, we have this is the largest radiation program on the continent, right? And so it doesn't, I think, make sense for us to try to redevelop our own. But I would think it makes a lot more sense to be able to link in terms of the bridge. So
probably should have a couple of champions to do this.
Yeah.
And then have a sentinel project. I believe in sentinel projects because I think that's the only way you can easily bring people together. And it's not difficult to get pharmaceutical support when you have a great sentinel idea. I mean, look at Inspire and Manager. And I think those kinds of projects allow you to sort of figure out all the bugs and who can work with what. And I think it's really helpful for us. So maybe the fruit of this talk is that we would build a bridging project between RMP and whatever program we like, and have a sentinel project, and then take it from there. If the sentinel project works, the program will come.
Can I follow up on that? This was great, and Lillian, you always pull everything together in a way that makes so much sense. The key to me
is what you told me yesterday.
So this is all great, but it's grounded right now in a group of patients who are very kind of advanced in the stages of their disease, right? And to me, and I think many people in the room, one of our big interests is how do we push this forward in the natural history of the disease so we're getting patients who are potentially curable, either with these concepts alone or with surgery or with radiation treatment, something linked. So we push people up from, a 30 or 40 or 50% probability of survival to 80 or 90%. And how do we do that? Can you put your sort of big picture cap on and talk about that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more because I think the benefits from advanced treatment is going to be incremental. It's not going to be transformative. So to be able, unfortunately in the field of drug development, new drugs are tested in advanced cancers by rules and by ethics that you have to test it not in a curative population until you prove it's safe in the advanced population. But once you have drugs like promising drugs, that really is to move it forward to have the bigger tail, as you said. I think we need money for that. It's hard to do this without money. We can't really launch a big, study looking at surveillance, for example, to see whether we can catch patients who are at high risk of relapse versus no, and do deep molecular testing to predict that without money, without support. I think, there has been some ideas. We've been talking to BC about this recently on how to really perhaps mount a study like this where we, follow patients who are cured at high risk for relapse and then, do molecular testing, follow them up and see if there are signatures we can predict for that. But, without the support of, funding agencies or foundation or others, it's going to be difficult to mount something like this.
It would be moving some of the molecular testing early in that, so not wait till they relapsed until they failed, or likely going to fail standard systemic treatment, and doing it up front and capitalizing on that.
One of the projects that Trevor Pugh is leading is, and Scott as well, is really looking at circulating DNA as well, and they're sort of asking for ideas on projects such as this. High risk for relapse that you can do circulating DNA to sort of monitor them. But these are still boutique projects, they're not programmatic yet. So I think maybe once we have a few boutique projects that are interesting and promising, that's where we can garner enough interest and preliminary data to get a bigger programmatic grant to do that. But that would be a multi-million project. It could not be a few $100,000 project, as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks.
And then you talked about Sentinel projects and a lot of these thinking about the trends, and probably not every project, especially involving uncertainty and developments, will succeed. Can you talk about what relative proportion of ideas don't succeed, and how do you prevention from ensure that something comes out of it when there are all these people that you're leading towards this vision?
Yeah, I mean, even look at CGP, if we look at our list of projects, how many were successful and how many were not, I would say maybe 2/3 are successful, really successful, and maybe a third didn't really go that far. But I think even if you're not successful, you learn about it, right? Why weren't you successful? Was it just because the momentum just died? And why did it die? Is it because the science is poor, or is it because the people are poor? If the people are poor, that's easy to deal with. The science are poor, then we need to think back about how to fix that, right? So I think I consider each lesson one to learn from. And certainly I think that's important. Again, you have to face the brutal facts. If it doesn't work, why didn't it work? And we should talk about it. And I think that's the kind of postmortem we all have to do.
We also have regular meetings, and then there is a balance between having meetings at too many meetings with too many people versus efficiency. Can you talk a little bit about how those are put together to make sure that they are things that are actionable, have the right background behind it so that you can move forward?
I gauge meetings frequency based on how frequent people show up. If a meeting is obviously everybody wants to come, then your meeting is important and successful. So if I see that a meeting, people start not showing up, then obviously something's wrong. We need to learn from that. Most of the meetings that are successful and people are interested to come to learn what's more, they will come. And like the Inspire meeting happens every week. People come. Not everybody, but they come whenever they could. The Phase 1 meeting, they have no choice. They're part of the program. They have to come. Or they'll be emailed or noticed. But I think that's a good way to judge.